One reasonable definition of force seems to be something along the lines of action that involves a change in the liberty or property of another without the consent of the affected party. In its most basic sense, force is something that is plain to see. If you're being robbed at gunpoint on the street, or if you're being raped, or if you're being held captive in a basement, you are well aware of it and most likely not happy about it. Brute force is, well, brute. However, the fact that you are aware of what's being done to you as soon as that force is initiated can be useful. You can take steps to defend yourself. If you're lucky, you might prevent that force from occurring completely if you're well prepared enough and notice early enough. Otherwise, you might be able to end the force in progress prematurely, still an outcome preferable to letting it run its full course. You can pull your own gun on the mugger, you can kick the rapist in the groin, and you can look for something sharp in the basement to rub the rope that binds you against. However, fraud seems to be action that involves a change in the liberty or property of another, but that is portrayed in such a way as to appear not to be force. With fraud, the opportunity for consent is not even given. Or if it is consent to a lie that is inconsistent with reality and/or the intent of the liar. Thus, fraud that is carefully conducted can be much more efficient than just plain force. If you somehow convince your captive that they want to be in the basement, you will have no need to bind their hands directly. A corrupt banker who embezzles his customers' money while displaying no change in the balance in some online interface has no need for a gun. In most cases of fraud, it is only long after the fraud, which is force in disguise, has taken place that the victim realizes he has been cheated, that is, that his level of property or liberty has changed without even his knowledge, let alone consent. By the time he realizes this, it is often too late to do anything about it. The offender may have run off to a foreign country, or already spent the victim's money in untraceable ways, or worst of all, the victim may already be dead. Therefore, it seems logical that the potentially most devastating type of fraud, and therefore most devastating type of force, all other things being equal, such as the magnitude of the damage done, is that in which the victim never realizes he was ever cheated. He then never has a chance to do anything about it. He may suffer immensely, but never realize the source of all the damage done to him, still believing in the lies told to him, which would likely have included scapegoats should anything go awry. It is also this type of lifelong deception, or perhaps longer than lifelong to account for the victim's children, their children, and so on, that is the most efficient of all if successful. I mentioned above that the embezzling banker wouldn't need a gun, but he very well might need one if his customers suddenly discovered that their money has actually been disappearing and come rioting furiously into his office. It is only if his victims never discover the truth that he need not spend a dime on weapons of brute force, or he might choose to set aside only a small fraction of his funds towards such measures if he believes that the chance of his lies being uncovered is slim but not zero. What if the perpetrator himself starts believing in some of his lies? What if he somehow manages to truly believe that he is performing a service to these people by robbing them? It's common sense that maintaining a lie is much more difficult than maintaining the truth. One has to constantly keep his story straight in his mind and keep it internally consistent, despite the fact that it clashes with reality. But if the liar even fools himself, his perception of reality is that lie, so he doesn't even have to worry about keeping the truth and lies distinct in his mind. Would this not then be the ultimate and efficient deception, with the smallest chance of being uncovered of all, and therefore the most destructive power of all, by the logic above, that is, that the damage can only begin to be properly undone after its true source has been identified? If this situation is carried out on a large enough scale, it ceases to even look like one group of individuals lying to another group of individuals. Rather, it's a bunch of people all believing in some fantasy, all the while suffering from cleverly disguised theft and enslavement, and blaming their suffering on some straw man which is itself part of that fantasy. But you gotta wonder, doesn't it occur to those thugs on some level that the robbery, torture, and murder they call a living might not equal service, virtue, and the best path to happiness and prosperity?